Great, thanks, Dave. So, quick overview of the series so far. The series has really been for the benefit of owners of recruitment businesses or managers of recruitment teams. And if you're one of these people and you're in the current environment, you're perhaps looking at technology to help you improve system processes, do things with less people. Certainly, unprecedented times, as we know, very difficult times. I think the government advice is still to work from home if you can. But of course, many of us will be thinking with the high streets opening, returning to work, what life will be like when we do return to work. What will be the expectations of our candidates and our clients? What are the technology solutions that you rely on now that perhaps you didn't rely on in the past? Will candidates perhaps be greater demand from working from home? These are all questions that I'm sure we all want to know answers for. But certainly, if you're looking at this time to review your technology, to perhaps be more efficient in what you do, perhaps you're looking to fix a particular problem or looking at software to help you respond faster to your clients and win new business. So certainly the series has been specifically focusing on our Dextra search product, which helps recruitment teams source candidates really effectively and helps they build a strong shortlist of candidates really effectively. So the series overview, part one, was looking about how Dextra differs from a built-in CRM search. I'm sure you're using a CRM at the moment. There are differences in the way or workarounds or ways that you can work with these searches to get results. We really focus on part one about how we're different. Part two is a key area, more specifically about helping recruiters build really complex searches really easily, and why Boolean searches really just do belong in the past. And today it's about the secret behind Dextra and the algorithm of how we actually identify the best candidates the fastest. Think about all those candidates that you have in the database, all those candidates on external sources, where you're working to identify the best candidates, how Dextra gets your recruiters to focus on those candidates that are best matched to your search. So just to recap, if you're really interested in part one, it is available on our blog. The recording is about 30 minutes long. We try to keep these sessions to a minimum of 30 minutes or maximum 30 minutes. Sometimes a few minutes we overrun. That part two, again, on the blog, why Boolean searches belong in the past. Please do take time to view if they are specifically areas that you're interested in. If you haven't heard of Dextra, we have been around since 2002, so for 18 years we've been perfecting our CV extraction technology, and it's formed in natural language, machine learning, and automation. So helping recruiters save time and be more efficient at doing the job of recruitment. But today we have over more than 2 million searches run every month on our Dextra search product. So what's today about? So today is about how to identify the best candidates the fastest. So if you are a recruiter and you think about all of the ways you may be actively sourcing for your roles, how do you do it? And let's just take a minute to think about that. But first, of course, you're potentially would have used one of these systems. These are partners we work with. These are great CRM platforms that help you with your sales and recruitment processes. Certainly, they have ways in which you can search the data, and you may be doing things manually in some ways, or you may not be able to get to the candidates quickly, or you may find that recruiters just ignore the local data because they feel that they can't get to the candidates quickly, they can't identify the best candidates quickly in the database, so they tend to ignore that rich source of candidate data and then go to external sources such as job boards, or only look at job applications, because they're only interested in building a shortlist of the hot candidates, those that are available at the moment. But of course, if your systems and processes are working correctly with these databases, you're going to be able to identify hot candidates in your own data as well. But if you think about in the seat of a recruiter, when you receive a role that you need to source for, there are areas that you're going to source for candidates. Perhaps you're thinking, firstly, who's in my personal network? Can I get referrals from other candidates? Who else is in process? Who else is the client interviewing? These are really great ways that candidates use recruiters use their knowledge and skills to identify these candidates. But of course, when those hot candidates are identified, where do you keep them? Do you keep them on a list? Do you keep them in an Excel spreadsheet? Or do you update the statuses in the database? Do you have the processes and ways of tracking that in the database, either as a hot list or a status of a candidate? What else? Yeah, status of a candidate, or it could be last CV updated, for example. So these are the sort of ways you'll be using your CRM search to find these candidates. Are you looking then at sourcing candidates on job boards? Okay, yeah, we know they're a great source of candidates. Are you doing that effectively? Are you using social media platforms to go and search and find for candidates? And also you're working across your job adverts and your website applications. So these are all kind of areas that you need to think about, and I'm sure you are. You may not be using job boards. You may be just working with the database. You may just be working with your network. I mean, I was speaking to a client recently, and they generally look to get 25, a shortlist of about 20 candidates, and about 5 candidates from different sources. So 5 candidates from the network, 5 from the database, 5 from a job board search, and then 5 from job adverts. So if you get a good, strong shortlist of candidates, then you're going to potentially have a better. And if you do that quickly in an efficient way, you're going to get better candidates, quality candidates in front of your clients faster. But of course, systems and processes can get in the way. So what can hinder me from doing that effectively? And certainly, if you are searching on multiple platforms, you may get that there's too many results to manage, too many areas in which you need to search and find these candidates. There are too many results returned from the database, for example, and they're not relevant candidates. You may start to ignore that source and just go and use the job boards. And certainly, there is no easy way to filter down those large results as well. So, if you've got a huge search result, how do you easily, use terms to filter that down or identify which are the better candidates? An example of another recruiter, international global recruiter we were talking to, they were just receiving hundreds of job applications for the job roles that their recruiters could just never get through, and they would only pick the first 5 or 10 candidates that applied, and then get them on the database and work them. And so for often there's these candidates, these pool of candidates in your job aggregator platforms that aren't making the way into the database, and then get ignored on future searches. So having systems in place to make sure the data capture process is automated, and all those candidates, all those great available candidates get their way into the database so you can search them. And we have tools to help that, not to focus on that too much today. But if you think about the challenges of a recruiter searching the database or searching on a job board platform, again, that it could be that you're still getting too many results. And if you are, you've got to then start to think about some of the key terms in your search query. Is it just too wide? Can you make it more specific? Can you go edit that search and then run it on the multiple sources and then try to get a shorter search result? But how do you definitely know that you're not missing candidates? Perhaps they've misspelled something on their CV. You're still missing those candidates. Yeah, if that's a challenge, go back and have a look at our last webinar on Boolean searching. We cover this key point very, very, very specifically. And also unsuitable candidates returned. Perhaps you may find that the database is returning, or the search you're running is returning results where it's not the best matched skill. Maybe the candidate was doing, you're searching for a term, but that candidate was doing that skill 5 or 6 years ago, and but yet the database has suggested that's the best candidate. Other things that can hinder us are poor data. If you've got poor data capture processes in your database, you've got too many duplicates, or they're not categorized in the right way, then again, recruiters will just turn away from the database and then start to search externally. This is all very inefficient and time constraints. We just don't, we don't want to be spending too much time searching and mining data. We want to be, accessing our, wouldn't it be great if you had an extra hour a day to go and look, have better conversations with the candidates you've got on shortlist, and then, use them and understand, have conversations about who else is available, who else is interested in moving. Use more time to be more effective in other areas. So I wanted to ask a quick poll of you. So I'm going to launch one. There's 2 polls and multiple choice, anonymous, but keen to get your feedback on A, where is your best source of candidates, and B, what do you think that hinders you the most when sourcing candidates? So I'm going to launch the poll now. You should see questions. 1, where's your best source of placed candidates? Is it your network, referrals, hot candidates, the ATS, CRM database, job boards, social media platforms, job advert responses? Or is it what hinders you most in the sourcing process? Okay, we've got some results coming through. For a minute, I thought no one was on the webinar. Yeah, there's not, but here we've got the results now. Just a couple more seconds for you to answer. Appreciate there's a lot of options. Okay, so we've got 18, 19 answers. A few more seconds. Great. Okay, so let's share the results. So interestingly, where's your best source of candidates? 37% networks, referrals, and hot candidates. So this is, that's the, the great validation of how, recruiters use their networks to source candidates. Interesting enough, only 16% see it as the local database, 32% job board searches, LinkedIn 26%, and job adverts 21%. So a good spread with the CRM coming in last place, but networks and referrals as first. And what hinders you most when sourcing candidates? Way out in front, too many results. Yeah, not surprising there, just too many results to work through. The next one, poor data quality. Again, having poor data in the database, searching too many results. Again, there's, again, potentially that's an indication of people working in an efficient way. Dave, anything to add on that?
No, I think I'd agree with both of those. Certainly on the poor data as well, being able to find those best candidates. So yeah, no,
brilliant. Good stuff. Thanks for answering. So let's just get back to the presentation. If I can. Back to it again. So just in summary, there, I guess there's some cause and effect here. The reasons for perhaps the database being the poor sort, or bad data being the problem, and it could be that you're just getting poor returning investment from your existing tools. Perhaps you're using out of date technology. Perhaps it's time to look at the CRM. Perhaps it's time to look at the data in the CRM. Look at ways of which you can tidy that up, or perhaps you're just finding that there's too many manual processes in the way that you have to categorize data. Perhaps you haven't got the tools to capture and get that in an efficient way, or having the time to do so. Or it could be lack of adoption. Perhaps recruiters just don't know, are just not adopting your local tools, a local CRM. Maybe they need some more training. Maybe just a refusal to look at the database because they know the best candidates and job boards work for them. You know, there could be lots of different reasons for that. But I guess the effect is increased overheads to the business. You could find that you're unnecessarily spending more on external job board sources when those candidates are already in the database. Perhaps you're paying for the same candidate multiple times over. You've got more than one, you've got a whole team of sources or recruiters looking for similar candidates, and they're downloading the same candidates multiple times over. This is all leading to increased overheads. And again, if these are problems, then perhaps you need to employ more people or more resources to do manual tasks. Either that's manual tasks to categorize the data better in the database, or just doing things more manual, because you're searching over multiple places and doing things not quite efficient in that process. And lastly, it comes to lost revenue. What is the effect on your business in terms of lost revenue? Could it mean that you just got a weaker pipeline of candidates? We talked earlier about one of our clients that looked to get 25% from different sources. Just gives a good even spread. If they're the stronger the pipeline, the stronger the shortlist of candidates you can get over to your customer, the better for you. Could it mean there's missed opportunities? Because you're spending too much time, using tools or sourcing or working through data, that you're just missing opportunities elsewhere. You're just caught up in the weeds in the data. Also, it could be potentially that if you're not getting a strong shortlist of candidates over to your clients quickly enough, you may be putting those accounts at risk. You may be at danger of dropping off a PSL. But of course, if none of these are particularly concerns of you, perhaps you're doing things really, really efficiently, but you're still looking to technology to help you service your customers more effectively, or even win more customers. Okay, so those are potentially the reasons and implications, and I'm going to hand over to Dave now to talk about how Dextra Search is a tool which you can be very much more efficient in the way we can identify those candidates and build that strong shortlist.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Aid. So as with the last two webinars, if you join us for that, I'm now going to take you through how we can solve some of those challenges. I'm going to take you through how we can reduce the overheads and the time spent by ensuring you have the best candidates for your query at the top of your list by using our intelligent ranking. We're then going to show our advanced real-term filtering, so a term that we use, which then helps you drill down further to more specific candidates within that list using post-filtering options. And both of them tie nicely into getting too many results. One of the things you just flagged as a hindrance, having too many results or too many irrelevant results. By using our intelligent ranking, we get the best to the top and then allow you to further filter as well. But then finally, I'm going to wrap that piece up by showing you how you can actually directly save money by ensuring you get the best candidates, the best, most up-to-date candidates from the right sources, whether they're your job board candidates, social media candidates, or candidates from your database. So they're the three areas I'm going to take you through now. Now, from the previous sessions, I've shown you how we construct a search, how we build a search out from create a match off the back of a job description, or actually build a search using our natural language processing. So I'm not going to take you through how this works and how you can build this search. Please, if you're joining us for the first time, do go check out how I'm actually constructing this search here and what all these things I'm showing you now mean. But I'm going to quickly create a search so I can run it and take you to that next stage that you haven't seen yet, which is how we then rank and post-filter those results. So if you tuned into one of the last sessions, I used a job description that was a project manager, and I set there needed to be a project manager within the last 3 years. And I'm also going to set how much experience they need with a term. So I'm going to bring in my term, Agile, and set that to 5 years of experience, or at least 5 years of experience. And then just in case this is your first time, you can see our AI term expansion there of Agile methodology. Of course, we do that for all terms. bring in some job boards as well, and then run this search. So again, this is as far as we typically went in the last 2 sessions, but now I'm going to show you and load up some of these candidates and show you how we scored them and how our ranking works. Now, effectively, what sets us, what drives our ranking is reading those CVs, scoring those CVs like a human would, based on their experience and proficiency and the context within that CV. So you can see here we've got all our results from all the different sources. I'm just going to focus on the Dextra list for now, which is my local source of candidates. This would, of course, be your CRM candidates. And here they are coming back in rank order. And let's choose one. Let's go for Carlo here. Now, if I show you this CV, you can see on the left-hand side, we've got their full CV text. And the right-hand side, we've broken it down into certain areas. What you'll notice is that we've got project manager and we've got agile, both within the criteria. They've been a project manager within the last 3 years, and they've got at least 5 years experience with agile. Not necessarily because it's explicitly written, but because we're looking at the work history here as well. So you can see since 1999 to now, so over 20 years, they've been a project manager with agile methodologies experience. So that is a massive influence into how we score this candidate. Again, we're reading the context, seeing where these terms appear in their CV, how many years of experience they have, is it a current position that or a skill that they're using, but also the terminology as well. Oops, sorry, I've skipped forward there. Now, if I bring up another candidate, now these are all going to be relatively good candidates. They're all scored quite highly up in my list. But just to show you the difference between this candidate and another candidate further down in the list, and you'll see how we score them slightly differently. And it's also a direct comparison to typically how other search engines would actually score these candidates. So if I bring up here, let's go for Michael. Now, when looking at this CV, you can actually see that they've written the term project manager more than once. In the other CV, it was just one time. So looking across this CV, they've referenced it at least 4 or 5 times being a project manager. Now, most search systems actually score this candidate higher because it's referenced that term more often. But actually, if you read across the CV, you'll notice that they've started being a project manager in 2005. They therefore have 5 years less experience than in the first candidate I showed you. So again, we're not tricked by the repetition of a term. We're actually reading that CV, scoring them intelligently, so you're going to get the best candidates at the top of the list. You might have loads of candidates that come back, but you know the best are going to be at the top. Now I'm going to come back to all of my results. So that was our ranking. Now I want to show you our post-filtering options. So you'll see on the left-hand side, we have a dynamic list of our real-term terms coming back here. Now we break these down into different categories, which are effectively skills, current job titles, how recently it was updated, etc. If I select current job title, so my original search was actually people that have been project managers within the last 3 years. So that's these 327 candidates that have come back. But now, I know these are the best candidates, but I want to further refine that. I want to build my own shortlist of my interpretation of who is best for this role. And what we've done, using our machine learning again, with our term suggestion and clustering from previous demos, you can actually see we've categorized where people have the same job title, same current job title. So we can see out of these 300 odd candidates, 94 of them are currently project managers. So if I click on this, I can drill down straight away to that list of 94 results. Again, really quick, instant filtering. And this is filtering based on terms that you can filter on. You're not having to set up all your filters at the start and then miss key candidates. Sorry, that's my doorbell ringing there. Just lost where I was. So if I take a step back here, yeah, here we are, sorry. So now I'm going to filter it on more than one term. So that was just project manager. Now I'm going to filter on the other terms that I have available. So you can see I've got recency, I've got job titles, I've got other categories. So let's go for a skill. So a category is effectively a skill cluster. So I'm going to choose waterfall as a common skill that's been mentioned on these. So I'm going to tick that option. I'm going to do a multi-tick. So I'm going to go for waterfall. I'm also going to say when they were last updated, so within the last week. But also you can put a cross in there as well to exclude people based on other terms. I'm going to exclude people that are based in Greater London. And there we come down to my true list, my final shortlist of those 5 candidates from that large list of 300. So I can select all, I can compare these and view which candidates I want to bring in as part of my shortlist. Now, finally, the third part of this is comparing these against your job board candidates. So what we can do here is, if you've been using the Dextra search system for a while, when you start to download candidates through Dextra search, you found candidates on job boards, you start adding them into your database. We will then track that, and we will learn and see when these candidates that are duplicates already exist on the database. So you can see on this candidate here, which comes from the job board DICE, we've got a little Dextra logo under my cursor, which it's saying, to telling the recruiter, actually, this candidate already exists on your database. We've downloaded them before. You might not need to download them again. So we then feed back to that user to say who downloaded it and when. So you can see it was actually downloaded by myself a few days ago. So I can then make the judgment call. Well, I don't need to use another credit here. I've already got the latest information from this candidate. I'm just going to work with them from the database already. But if it had said here, it was downloaded by a colleague of mine 3 years ago, well, then I can make that judgment call. I probably do want the most up-to-date information. And then, of course, you would download that candidate from the job board. If I keep this going, if you've just, for example, installed Dextra Search and you haven't built up enough of this tracked information, we can actually deduplicate candidates on the fly as well. So you can see here, Ketan doesn't have a logo next to them. I want to check to see if they exist in the database myself. So we can click this button on the right-hand side and it will pop up and let me know if there's been any duplicates. No, great, none found. Therefore, I do want to pull this candidate's information through onto my system. And that's where we have the load to Dextra icon, which I just clicked there. And that's where it feeds in to another one of our solutions called Dextra Capture. So it will take this candidate from this job board and load them through into your local database, tracking the source, making sure it's got all the data updated or correct within the database. You've got that data integrity to work on. And I know commonly, if you're having to download candidates of job boards, you save them to your desktop, you then upload them into the system, you may forget to track that source. This is a seamless, automated way to load through candidates, and you can do it in bulk as well. But then finally, once I'm happy with all of these results, I can select them all and put them forward to shortlist, which is what we said we wanted to do, get you to that perfect shortlist. So please feel free to ask any questions. I know we've gone over by a little bit of time. I'm just going to wrap up here and then hand back over to Adrian. So just to summarize the 3 things I took you through there. First of all, we ranked the candidates intelligently based on the context and the experience and the proficiency of their CVs and the skills and terms within there to make sure you have the best candidates first in your list. You're not having to scroll through list after list to get to them. We then were able to filter down if you've still got too many results or want to apply your own opinion on the best shortlist of candidates. You can further filter this down based on the actual data you have available. And then finally, we had our deduplication and auto parsing against the job board so that no matter where you find the candidates, you can make sure you have the most up-to-date information, whether that's coming from a job board or you've already got it in your database. And if it's the latter, then you can save on marketing budget and save on those credits as well. Aid, back over to you to wrap up.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dave. Great demo there, and really good to just look at the Dextra search tool, how the algorithm helps to rank those best candidates really quickly. So you're not dealing with those huge data sets. Potentially, being able to filter through filter by the terminology or the words on the CV, perhaps, which aren't categorized in the database, and filter by like last CV updated date. Or sort of the recency of how recent you've seen those candidates in there. And we often find that when we do turn on Dextra for our customers, they start to identify candidates in their own data that didn't even know they existed. So they're starting to maximize the value of the database, and suddenly it's all those, the lights go on, you know, the database does become a much, it comes from like the last source to being one of the strongest source. And if you're capturing all that data, wouldn't it be great if we could ensure that every CV that comes into the business is captured? So you don't have to do all these manual processes to categorize the candidates in the CRM. You know, Dextra do the heavy lifting of finding, identifying these candidates and getting the best candidates to your recruiters, so they can spend, you know, less time on manual tasks and have more time to build a stronger pipeline, more time to have better conversation with their candidates and clients, and make more placements as a result. Thanks again for listening. I think we've got just a note, apologies for running over. Any questions, Dave?
Yep, so we've got probably time for one or two. First one being, how do we, Ade, you can answer this one, how do we score candidates and rank candidates from job boards? Yeah, certainly. So we've talked about how Dextra scores and ranks candidates. When it comes to the job boards, obviously the job boards have their own way of searching. But the great thing about Dextra is that when you start to build your search, we are optimizing the search for each of the job boards, either from building out a Boolean string, but also making sure we're filling out all those areas on the job board's requirements to make sure we get the best candidates ranked back from the job board. So again, saving time, but also making sure we're getting the best results back from their search by understanding how the job boards need to get a search query from you. Cool. And then the last question here is, how do we filter on location, or what's that based on? So yes, there's two things there. When you set up your first search and you type in a location, that's based on our geolocation services, where we've mapped a latitude and longitude for addresses and postcodes all around the world to then have a radial search. The post filtering that we just took you through then is based on the terms, the words within the CV. So people that have mentioned that they live in London or live in the UK, for example, we're picking that up and clustering them all together so you can just quickly see how it's been described within their CVs. So two different methods to use location searching there. And I think that's all we've got time for, right? Brilliant. Well, just to thank you very much for attending. You know, it's been fun, you know, bringing these webinars to you. We're going to think about the next set in the series. But if you do have any questions that you think of later, please get in touch. It would be great to hear from you. And thanks again for giving us your time. Cheers, guys. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.